I'm in the Twitch, so yeah.
Yeah, good.
All right. So what I want to do first thing before we get into the theory crafting and chatter is go over all of our credentials, kind of why we at least marginally qualified to have an opinion on these things. So I'll just go first so that you guys can get an idea of what I'm talking about. So my experience for PvP at Endgame level 60 content is I've ranked the highest ranking class I have is a Warlock. I ranked him to 12, although I put in enough time to rank him to 13. We just had a really shitty time frame for the Kiraji event, so I had to go farm bugs on the week I was going to get 13. So it delayed me and I got 12 instead. But I also have had a rank 11 Warlock, a rank 10 Warrior, a rank 10 Shaman, a rank 10 Priest, and I think that's it. Oh, rank 10 Paladin. So I've played it a lot just to the rank 10 spot and had a good experience and seen a lot of different class strengths and weaknesses from, just diversifying my portfolios, you would say. Kev, please give me your credentials.
Yeah, it's Kevio. My credentials are in original classic. I ranked a rogue to rank 14, primarily in Arathi Basin. So my experience is that a lot of dueling on a rogue and a lot of group PvP and ranking on a rogue. So pug smashing, but also going against other pre-mades in Arathi Basin and Gulch. Other than that, I played a bit of Era last several months on a mage that I got to rank 12, which is obviously a lot easier with the new rank, how ranking works now. So it's basically just a PvE Alterac Valley farm fest. But the meta on Era was rank in AV, so then you can dominate world PvP. So I did a lot of world PvP on a mage with on white main, so I got a good sense of world PvP meta as it stands with 100 on 100 and what classes excel there.
Big group PvP.
Yeah, which is a lot different than like battlegrounds or dueling or small encounters. It's like just 100 on 100 Blackrock Mountain, griefing farming.
I kind of want to touch on what you said. So Arcadis is probably new to this information. He probably did read about it, but the ranking system is different this time around in that the grind has been reduced and has a cap to it. So, Kev, if you don't mind, since you've actually been doing that grind, can you give us just a breakdown of it?
Yeah, in its simplest form, there's for different ranks or lower you are, there's thresholds that you just need to hit that, and you will max out for that week of the maximum RP you can gain. In terms of going towards the next rank. So when you're lower ranks, it might be like, I think when I was before rank 10, it was like I never needed to get more than, say, 80k honor. And then as you get past like rank 8 or later, it's like there's 3 thresholds. One will be like that you don't decay at all. Second, there will be another threshold that will be move you up incrementally. And then another one that maxes you out, like your maximum increase.
Which is like the old equivalent to rank 1?
Yeah, exactly. You can basically hit, it's not exactly like brackets, because there's only really, 3. I'd have to pull up my screen to show you how the calculator works, but just for people watching this, between, rank 1 and rank 10, let's call it, you'll never need to get more than maybe 175k honor that week, and you'll get the most possible. And then at the high end, once you get past rank 11, you need to start getting 500k. And then in between that, rank 10 and 12, it's anywhere from 370k to 450k. And all of that depends on what the meta is for honor gain, right? So in Era, it was just an AV fest, so you could do that in 2 days of gameplay pretty easily.
I do hope that changes, obviously, because I really like all of the battlegrounds, but AV is just less, less tight-knit, I guess is the right way to put it. Arcadis can attest to the setting up of pre-made, since he helped lead our Arathi Basin group for quite a few weeks on his grind.
Yeah, I'll jump in. What's up? It's Arcadis. So that's great to hear. I'm glad they made some changes. I was wondering when you were going to start to say a number over 100K. It's way more user friendly. I like that gap, the gap closers you can take, and still have your life, to go about, or raid or whatever it is.
Yeah, not have to pool party either is pretty big.
I know. I was going to get to that. So just a little bit of background. Started ranking around AQ40 time. A little bit before that, actually. I think I hit rank 14 on the week we opened the gates, which was hard to do because I was also doing Scarab Lord grind. It was primarily because Maladath wasn't an option. It sounded like it was going to be going to 2 other warriors before me, and I was tired of using the same old weapons. So I said, you know what? I'm going to go rank 14 and just get my best weapons that way.
Weapons on your own.
Yeah, and also probably, besides ranking, like Kevio said, an AB, some Arathi, or Altered Valley, Lotus Mafia was a big fun aspect of PvP as well. Having each zone in lockdown, killing competitors, even to the point where we had a Horde Mage account that we would kill Alliance competitors on just to further our Lotus gathering. In all aspects of the way, it's been fun playing PvP. But Versi was my first and only kind of like try-hard ranking character. I did some Arena and TBC and Wrath, but most of my PvP extent goes through Classic.
Yeah, well, I mean, combined though, so we have the full, broad scope of play styles and experience with us three too, which I like a lot. We have a warrior player, rogue player, and a warlock player, with lots of experiences with other casters, other melee, and other healers. So, we do have a really good idea of how things have been in the past. Obviously, it's going to change a lot moving forward with Season of Discovery. But we also have some pretty good experience with other forms of content too, which I think will aid in us kind of having ideas with how things are going to work moving forward. What I mean by that is we did TBC Arena together, Wrath Arena together. We tried some weird stuff like Dark Thunder Cleave. We had Shadowplay with Aflock. Kev tried his go at Af. He was exceptional in TBC on his rogue. So we've all kind of seen different avenues of PvP as well. I played a good bit of retail in the last year and a half of Arena, and some rated battlegrounds. So we all have a great concept of what's strong and why it's strong, and hopefully what'll continue to change or be for the better or be for the worst. If you guys can see my screen, what I actually want to do is kind of 180 this, even though we didn't play a lot of healer in the pre-made setting. I'm just going to quickly show what my old tiering system was. So I had Resto Shaman as S tier, which feel free to correct me after I make this list.
I just wanted to jump in real quick.
Sure.
and what you said about, we definitely have our own classes that we played, but we can all agree that it was a team effort no matter what in order to win your pre-made games. Some of it was stomping, but some of it was, a good challenge. And in order to win those, it took the whole team cooperating. So I'm hoping that's going to be the case again in SOD.
Some of it was stacking too, getting 4 or 5 warriors on your team.
Oh, I mean, a warrior with a pocket pally, and I'll get there. Okay. I want to see this list.
So I've just put Disc and Holy Paladin and actually Resto Druid all in A. And I think when I originally was going over it, just point blank, I put them all in A. But looking back on it, if the other team had enough Resto Shamans and Ellie Shamans in a pre-made versus pre-made, it was just terrifying. They were just so hard to beat.
Oh, yeah. Ellie Shamans were the biggest, head-to-head combat, especially right around the blacksmith when they were at the basin.
It was funny I ranked ally rogues, so we always thought Ellie Shamans were bullshit, because of their natures. Swiftness, whatever it's called, combo.
Right.
And Wind Fury and grounding. But then I've ranked with Horde folks, and they're like, Paladin bubble is always up, and they have freedom, and they have a pocket healer for the warriors, and it's like the other side thinks the other side is imbalanced. But in my humble opinion, I definitely think the LA Shaman was more of a game changer in like a pre-made versus pre-made clash in Gulch or Barathi Basin.
Right.
100%.
Than a pocket pally healer is.
I think the best success rate we had against, I think it was like Onslaught or whoever had like the sweaty pre-made that both of our teams would go up against.
Yeah.
One of the best games we had against them where we won was the whole team having the Zanza that reflects the first ability cast on you.
That's right.
And all of those shamans are just lining up chain lightnings right off the bat on the battle for blacksmith. So having the Zanzas to reflect it, and then having the warriors get past with freedom to fear and stop the tremors, that's like your really only real chance at success there. Otherwise, your priests, your squishies are just getting eliminated right off the bat. Even the warriors were getting eliminated from.
That's a good point. It reminds me, like, I think this will definitely be the case. It's in SOD still is, whichever team, both in world PvP encounters, small encounters, and pre-mades, pugs, everyone's got to have engineering to be competitive. So a lot of times, whoever's more sappers wins, or throwing Arcadis through an arcane bomb a few times that tilted a fight. So popping faps, that's all going to be part of the meta on top of all the class changes. So gotta have sappers.
So here's my original reasons for putting these guys in the ranking that I had them. Output, just pure output perspective wise. Like, I always felt priests had the most healing in PvP. This is strictly PvP, both large and small scale. Holy Paladins didn't really get that level of healing to come online until very late in the game because their tier wasn't itemized, nor was their PvP gear. Like, it has very low healing numbers on it. So if they want to wear plate, which they're gonna, then they're just not gonna have very good output at the time. They just had make up for it with tremendous utility. Resto Druids, great, but they had like the most mana problems, and they were more of like bait. Like if someone needed to go for, say, they were trying to tunnel a healer, if they went on the Druid had a better kite ability, so that was its strength, but it didn't necessarily like top people off very well outside of its NS for healing touch. And then Resto Shaman, I think, was just a little bit busted because the chain heal is insane, and also they could NS chain heal or NS Greater Restoration, I think it's called.
Greater Healing Wave, yeah.
Greater Healing Wave, yeah. So they had the same options as a Resto Druid, but also had like consistent chain heals to keep like several warriors topped and keep that combat going and elongated until either you killed somebody quickly or you could even take it into a long match and drop Mana Tide, get those warriors continuously pumping out with infinite rage and slowly degrade you over time. So I just felt like they were slightly ahead. Now I think if you're talking about later in the phase, like when tier 3 came into the picture, it just kind of got flipped on its head a little bit because Holy Paladins become so ridiculous. Like a reckless popped warrior has trouble killing them sometimes.
100%, I agree. Let's not forget how strong standalone priests are too. More so in open world, but they can just tick you down with Shadow Word Pain, Mind Blast, Smite, all wanding, all of that. Like if you're a gold mine holding down the fort at gold mine, something like that, then priests were a good person to put there along with Druid.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think they are a huge part of any successful pre-made / good battleground group, and in open world, I think they're one of the best just because Holy Nova by itself is kind of nuts for like pushing on other raid groups in open world PvP against like world bosses or at BRD or Black Rock Mountain. I'm sorry, those big pushes. Holy Nova is kind of a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
But I do feel like they're really, really killable. Like I'm extremely killable in a coordinated effort, or even by someone that can just do a lot of burst. And that was their one weakness.
Absolutely, they were always a warrior's first target. Any clothy, especially if you throw up a sunder or two on them, they just, they fall over like paper.
They become infinitely more important on depending on which faction you're on, because on ally, they're the only ones that can offensive dispel.
Right.
So
Right.
playing Gulch, like you need to dispel FAPs off of the flag carrier,
Yep.
and they just have the most raw healing. You know, Pallies are nice, but their flashlight's not gonna like top people off the way Priest can, and their powered shield can save people. In World PvP encounters, it's literally just stack renews and shields on the mages, and the mages push, explode things, and then they run it in Holy Nova and just like, you know, get raw healing throughout the whole raid and keep mages alive.
So based on some of the things we've gone over, old stuff wise, like Season of Discovery, Classic, Season of Mastery, Classic Era, Original Classic Launch, in a just general rating for pre-mating, solo queuing, some open world PvP, do you guys think I should change this up at all? Or do you feel like Shaman's kind of a little bit ahead?
This in the context of classic PvP, not SOD.
Right, not the new stuff, not Season of Discovery.
Yeah, this is fine.
This is fine. I thought for a second of dropping Resto Druid down to B, but I think that all 4 of those A healers are pretty much on par.
I think
with
that
different
would be fair
multiple-
because you really, like, a lot of times you want one and that's it. You're like, oh yeah, we have our Resto Druid, we're good.
Actually, my only feedback would be I didn't do a ton of like true pre-mating on Horde, but I did a little bit on Era when we'd like run Gulch on the weekends. But like, I want to say a lot of the shamans would run Ellie, and like they were I don't know if they were
just off heal,
and they were just off heals.
Yeah, coordinated pre-mades would run like several Ellies and like a Resto, maybe 2, just because it becomes harder to figure out which one's your actual designated healer when everyone's casting Chain Lightnings. So yeah, but you're correct. There's a lot more Ellie played than Resto, but there were definitely designated Restos. And I actually am curious how this will get swapped up. So this is kind of how we think things pan out for the majority of 60 content. Obviously, it can adjust in one direction or the other depending on the phase of the content. But let's go over some of the Season of Discovery stuff and see how we think this tier list might change up. So we'll just do a little bit of education first, and then I'll get you guys' thoughts. Resto Druid is just getting several healing tools. The one unique one that I saw that I thought was curious, is more of a boomy thing, was that your Wrath becomes free, and it can proc a free healing touch. So that's kind of a big deal if you're like hybrid DPSing, but it doesn't affect them if they're just pure healer. Like, you just want output. Now they have really expensive 5-man heals now that'll hit your entire party, kind of like Priest's Prayer. And then they have the Life Bloom, which is a very common, from TBC on ability that can stack up to 3 times. If it gets dispelled, it heals for a certain amount. We've had to deal with a lot of it in Arena, and also has a chance to crit. And then they have, those are the major ones of note. But yeah, there's like 3 or 4 new heals that they'll get, essentially, as of right now, that we know of. I'm sure there'll be much more. It just seems like they improve their output, which definitely makes them much better, and brings value to Resto Druid for sure, because I felt like that might have been a weakness. But if mana is still a problem for them, then it didn't fix it necessarily. It just kind of keeps them in line with the damage that is going to be also increased from all the other classes. So I'm not sure I want to move them just yet. The Disc Priest / Holy Priest argument is really funny to me because there's almost no differentiation originally, and now there will be. How they design it will be real curious to me. It looks like they might be pushing one of them as like a semi DPS, but as far as pure healing standpoint, the only difference really for me is that originally Disc was going to be your power infusion, so you used it to combo with like strong casters. Holy Priest was like built to be slightly tankier, had that Holy Nova available, and also had more output, so that was the more go-to, like pure healer. The big changes coming to Priest is like they have Penance, which is a very, very popular ability. I think it's Prayer of Healing. Is that the one that bounces, Kev?
Prayer of Mending.
Prayer of
is
Mending.
The bounty.
Mending.
So that is a big deal to me. I think that's a massive gain for them because it's free essentially. Like we'll talk about that later too. But any kind of thing that gives them like almost a free GCD to be able to get more output out of, I think is a huge victory for all of them. They have a couple other wonky utility moves, like the Simulacrum might be really good, but it looks like more of a raid ability. They're getting several different shadow abilities, which is probably going to be more predominantly used by shadow priests. They're getting a big barrier bubble that reminds me a lot of like the Death Knight anti-magic zone, but it's just for like all damage. And then they're getting like some buffs to their power word shield, which is really useful. But it's all buffing output. And I think that it's not really taking into account from a PvP angle their biggest weakness, which is always that they're the first one killed. So I think that's a big issue for priests moving forward. Kev, I think I interrupted you.
Yeah, I was going to touch on Druid then Priest since you started on Druid.
Sure.
My somewhat lukewarm take on Druids is like the way the health pools are in Classic and the way HOTS work. Like I don't know that the health pools are large enough for like the throughput you feel on like a TBC Druid, where once they have a rejuve and like 3 life blooms and they're in bear form, or they're have that rolling on a warrior, where it just feels like you can't get the health pool down because everything's hotting and rolling. I feel like that works in TBC because the health pools are at like a good like tunage in size. I don't know if like the way the health pools are, where things kind of drop a lot faster and with classic itemization, if like a Druid rolls, their rejuve and life bloom on a warrior, is that going to feel like that strong throughput you feel in TBC Druid? So like that remains to be seen. I don't know if like itemization changes or if it'll feel that way, but that definitely isn't a thing in Classic where if they have a rejuve and regrowth, you're like you don't feel like you can't get it down. And then the other things I'm looking at their runes that benefit healing. And like Wild Growth like doesn't look like super compelling. Maybe if like that's like party wide.
That's an expensive one that I was talking about. Yeah, it's not efficient.
Yeah, and like and then the instant healing touch. I don't know how, like, if I'm just picturing myself in like a big blacksmith battle, I just don't see a scenario in which I'm like pumping
that
grass.
Seems kind of cool for like a boomy hybrid thing.
Yeah, that kind of makes me think a little bit about what you mentioned about earlier, where elemental shamans, or rather resto shamans, would be mostly LE spec, but be off healers. Where I can just picture a druid, 2v2ing or 1v1ing, where they're spamming wraths and they proc one of those healing touches, and boom, they're right back to almost full health.
What was the boomy healer build called in TBC? Restokin, right?
Restokin.
Yeah.
Or Dream something. Dream State.
Yeah.
But
Dream State.
So it kind of reminds me of that. Now, that was very valuable in an arena setting, but like you said, it's just a different world in the 60 cap because, well, the time to kills are much faster. That's for sure. There's no resilience that we know of that's going to be in the game. So, everyone dies much faster. The damage reduction isn't nearly as high. The health pools aren't as high. And we're amplifying the damage, it seems. We're amplifying the healing, but if there's not reducing the damage as well in PvP, then it makes me extremely curious how HOTS are going to play. Granted, it does give some Dispel immunity with the Life Bloom introduction. And there's a lot of runes we don't know about yet coming out, so...
It sounds like it's just adding more versatility to an already versatile class, and
True.
It was pretty boring for Druid healers in Classic, especially in the raid environment where you're spamming healing touch over and over. You don't get to do any Swift Mends or Nourishes or anything like that. So I'm glad Life Bloom's at least being added in, and similar to Priest getting Prayer of Mending. I think those are both good changes.
I think if they give them a way to get critical heals on their HOTS, like all their HOTS, and also if there's some sort of built-in activation that'll just like amplify the speed at which they tick or something, that could be really useful. And it looks like they're kind of more mobile right now, which is good. Like it's a common Druid thing now, is they're very mobility high healers, and that's obviously a fun way to play and also very useful in PvP scenarios.
tell you what, one thing that you reminded me of, like that you said, like an Ellie hybrid. If I'm playing Wrathy Basin, sending a mage and like a resto slash balance druid with these sod runes sounds like a very nasty. Like they could fight forever and also kill stuff and delay a lumber mill.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
with that strat. So like,
True.
but that's hard to say. But that's where my mind went.
Yeah, so I do think druids look better and will feel better. I'm not sure if I want to bump them up a notch just yet on the tier list.
Yeah.
Priest wise, well, actually, I'm gonna let you take this one, Kev, because you've played more priest than I have, and you got to kill a lot of them on their rogue.
Yeah, I was going to ask Arcadis about like PvP healing because I don't know what it feels like to heal like a blacksmith fight if like you just want to pump, because they do get circle of healing for their gloves. So like I don't know if there's like everything's dying at once where priest would ever just spam the most throughput group heal. But that's where my mind goes because they do get circle healing. Penance you talked about. Palm is always just like so valuable, especially in a group fight where it bounces around.
Yeah.
I will say when I did play priest, go ahead.
Do they by any chance get pain suppression? Because if so, that'll be
Not yet.
okay.
Not at least not at level 25.
I think that's something they're gonna get, but
Penance alone is amazing. I'm wondering if it's gonna let it be used while moving. That was a change. I don't know if it's currently in Wrath or not. Even I haven't been playing a priest, but being able to move while penance is amazing. I think mobility is something priest lacks. The circle of healing sounds great. I think that it sounds more like it's going to be, throughput, really strong healer, and then it's either going to be mana or death. I don't think they're going to be able to last as long as, let's say, a druid or even shaman, really. So it'll be, really strong healer, but I feel like they might fall behind on a longer fight.
Yeah.
And typically, you're going to have them in your back line. You don't want them getting, you don't want them getting poked by having them in your front line. So
no.
Yeah,
strong healer, but squishy.
So the only thing they really get that helps survivability, when I played priest a little bit in TBC, is like when you're getting tunneled, you can only really do power word shield, renew, and mending, and you just
and fear
and fear. So the only thing they really knew they get that can just is instant healing without casting is prayer mending on themselves. Yeah. But most of the survivability they get in TBC is more around like overall tankiness and damage reduction, like flat out from the disc tree. But looking at I have their runes up, and none of this is really helping survivability except prayer mending.
Another weird thing too to me is that they're not changing the talent trees. That so far as what they've said is that the talent trees are remaining the same. And the differentiation is so small from Disc and Holy as is in PvP, but the runes aren't specific to your spec either. So you could have a Holy Priest with a Pain Sup if that becomes a rune. And it would make.
I whiffed on this actually though. Power Word Barrier, the shield.
Yeah.
I mean that's damage reduction by 25%. So they pop that on themselves. That's pretty strong.
Sure. What's the cooldown on it? Does it say?
3-minute cooldown. So not every. That's pretty.
Yeah, but that's good. It's good value. 3-minute cooldowns are usually up for all the big fights. I would argue that they might even go down a notch right now, just as is, like how we see them currently, until the other runes come into play. Just because the survivability is really questionable with all the extra damage coming in.
I think Disc Priest in general is going to be more survivable than a Holy Priest, just because of the talents that you get.
You get armor, right? That's what it is.
You stack some armor. You get Unbreakable Will, which is chance to resist stun, fear, and silence.
Yeah.
If you get that max, it's 15%. Dwarf. Let's talk about Alliance for a second. Dwarf is obviously going to be your best bet if you're talking PvP because of Stone Form. That goes back into the armor conversation. Huge. Having Inner Fire up. I know I haven't looked too much into the items that drop yet, but there was a ring that you could get. This won't be at level 25, but more so Endgame.
It was like a purple level 48 ring or something, right? Unyielding.
Yeah, on use gives you armor. So if you make a macro that combines Inner Fire with the ring and then popping Stone Form, it makes you pretty tanky.
Right.
Which was what I would do on my priest whenever I would Lotus farm against rogues. But But yeah, overall, you're going to be a little bit more tanky and a little bit more mana efficient with disc. Holy is just going to be strictly throughput.
Yeah.
I'll be surprised if we see very many holy priests um, in a PvP setting.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's subject to change. I mean,
Yeah, for sure.
with these changes.
Yeah, I would add. I know in the Gulch meta, like they definitely go disc for the damage aspect because their damage becomes like not that far off from like a Shadow Priest, and then they can also heal and the utility of Dispel. So definitely see a lot more disc in like a Gulch setting where
Yeah.
maybe Holy Priest was really strong in a World PvP that clashing 40 on 40.
Let's not forget about mana burn as well. That's one of the best
It's extremely
offensive.
valuable. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's so strong in 60 cap. It's hilarious how good it is. So I think that in itself just keeps them relevant. Okay, so let's move to Holy Paladin real quick. The changes coming to Holy Paladin. Get ready for it. Beacon of Light, Divine Sacrifice. So for the people that aren't privy to what that means, Beacon of Light is a more commonplace thing after Wrath of the Lich King. All of their healing, including overhealing, goes directly to the target of their beacon. So that by itself does not make them bust. It just makes them really good at keeping like one warrior up, that's going to be very nice. But they are flash of light healers in the current edition of the game. So unless they put in a lot of runes to change that up, then their output still isn't going to be insane. It'll be insanely efficient, and it'll be great for getting decent chunks of damage topped, but it's not going to top somebody that's getting really low. They're going to get Divine Sacrifice, which is a massive fucking, pardon my language, but just a huge ability. It's 20% reduction damage to the entire raid right now, I think.
30%.
Is it 30? Because it's, I thought it was,
Yeah.
if you took the additional talent point right now in Wrath, it gives it an additional 30%. Or
yeah, I'm going off the literal runes that are on Wowhead.
Okay, so 30%. Excellent. Yeah, so 30% reduction to, and actually I think it's your party. So 30% reduction to your entire party. That's pretty significant in PvP. And it's a pretty brief cooldown. Is it still 2 minutes, or did they make it a 3-minute cooldown?
2 minutes on this tooltip.
Yeah, so that's stellar. And then they have a very interesting thing that they're adding, which is they went kind of Dungeons and Dragons with it. The new aura that they can have is a chance to break fear and charm. Is that right? It's like,
where do you see that?
It's like 15% chance. It might be on one of the data mined runes. So I remember seeing it, but it may not be on the Wowhead right now. But if it is actually coming out, and I think it's a great idea, but it is kind of interesting. But yeah, the big output gains that they're getting is Divine Sacrifice saves lives, Beacon of Light basically doubles their healing. So all two very strong abilities. They don't have Sacred Shield yet that we know of, so they're not really like reducing damage that much still. They're naturally tanky though, which is one element that they have over several other healers. And then they also have some potential offensive runes they can start taking. They have an Interrupt they can take now. They have Crusader Strike. They have Divine Storm. So all those, although they sound quite weird for a healer to have, might have their potential offensive uses if you wanted to be like a melee healer or something. Just very cool, unique ideas.
So the hot take on paladins of all specs in SOD is, and who knows if people are going to be right, but everyone is already, I'm thinking demonology warlocks are like the metamorphosis rune with warlocks is going to be like broken, but
sure.
That remains to be seen. But the counterpoint people are speculating is there's a leg rune, Exorcist, which exorcism can be cast on any target that has exorcism can never be cast on it's 100. Oh, I guess they get exorcism a turn undead as a baseline ability.
Right.
That's going to be like the big counter to those metamorphosis warlocks.
Turn undead.
Yeah, turn evil or whatever it is. And then I'm looking at this exorcist rune. Exorcism can be now cast on any target and has 100% increased critical strike chance against undead and demons. So exorcism and turn undead Might be like big counter to whatever to spec that some people are considering S tier in like a Metamorphosis Warlock.
Right.
But yeah, I'm picturing like the Divine Sacrifice. Again, I'm gonna just equate it to scenarios I'm familiar with, from running into a big blacksmith fight or a big encounter in World PvP, and like you put the Paladin in the Mage group, and the mages get power word shielded up. They run in, pop faps. The Paladin pops Divine Sacrifice, where they're taking 30% reduced damage. That's just so much uptime of Sapper, Blast Wave, and Arcane Explosion, and like Frost related AoE that like that's what wins big encounters.
Yeah, you just
And
train
having
higher.
Divine Sacrifice can like really help them tank through that and get as many GCDs off.
I think in World PvP, this is just my own speculation from going through World PvP and Classic Vanilla. Having an entire raid of 40 mages, which is what Who had, and some of these big battles we had in the Shara and whatnot, you can't beat the crowd control that mages bring and the mass AoE. So I still think that they're going to hold the reins in that fashion, even with a bunch of changes coming to every class. You still can't ignore how superior mages were in the World PvP setting.
Sure. Oh yeah, we'll definitely
tie that in with what Kev said about having a paladin in each group and priests to bubble them all. That's going to be massive. In a battleground setting, I can still see, definitely bringing a mage or two or three, especially in Arathi Basin for lumber mill and team fights. I'm curious to see if you could just rock almost like a full team of mages, some mage healers and then some mage DPSers.
Yeah, there's a lot of exciting changes coming. Okay, so just to wrap up Paladin for now. That they were obviously a powerhouse originally. In fact, for you guys, you probably have already heard the story, but I actually was the one who like spearheaded us going Alliance in Original Classic. I told the guys I would not be in the guild unless we went Alliance. They have the most powerful class out of the two between Shaman and Pally, both in raiding and PvP. You've got Bops for mistakes. Salve is great in raids. They wear plate. They have a bubble so they can be tremendous in like large-scale PvP situations where they can pressure front lines. They're very useful in their utility in like pre-made and solo queue PvP. There's a lot of other assets they have, but just from a healing standpoint, that's what they bring to the table. And their output is obviously really, really good if they're allowed to just turret heal. So I know that they're a great class and definitely A/borderline S tier, but I think that they actually, with what we see right now in the game, kind of get devalued just a tad. Their healing is about to double, which is huge, but they're only gaining Divine Sac as of right now. And Divine Sac is also very valuable, but it looks like the direction they're going with the other healers, I don't know. Just in my head, it seems like they're getting more. That's just my take on it. I don't know if you guys feel differently.
This isn't that compelling outside of Divine Sacrifice, which is 2-minute cooldown. Nothing that like makes me think they can turn the tide in like a giant fight besides that. Reading the Beacon of Light tooltip again. Yeah, I mean, those things don't play out that strong, Beacon of Light, but I could be wrong.
Just thinking about how powerful they were in Classic, adding the beacon target with that is insane. And like, could you not just be hiding behind an object or a building or something and have your beacon up on someone and just be spam healing yourself? Like, the way that you can just eliminate LOS in that situation and still be such a strong healer and then save your bubble.
Also be backline now. You can heal someone that's like 35 yards from you, who's 35 yards from your beacon target, and then they get.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so I feel like there's going to be like this clash of all of the melee people in the middle, right, and casters trying to poke and tee up, and then you're just going to have these backline of healers. So it's really going to be, and depending on the battleground, depending on the scenario. It's going to be very strategic, in my opinion, with all these changes.
For sure.
Especially we'll see how strong Mending and Life Bloom and all the things we touched on already are. But I feel like it almost sounds like with all these changes, you just want to pick the weakest link and have your Zug Zugs go. And it's pretty much the first person to kill someone has the lead.
Paladin still has huge weaknesses to CC too. Like that was always their weakness. So that still
Fear.
exists. Yeah, fear.
Fear was one of their worst.
They don't have a
yeah.
counter for sheep right now unless they get Sacred Cleansing as a rune. Like they're not getting any
Yeah.
major buffs. So
I was just thinking, if someone tried to do that, you'd have to recognize it and send mages or a warlock or a rogue and as like the counterplay to that, which
yeah,
there's a counterplay. Whereas druids, there's no counterplay to a druid hotting, right? It's instant. It's pretty
right.
hard to stop.
Right.
The other thing, just one more thing on Divine Sacrifice, you can't use it while you're bopped or bubbled.
That's a big deal.
So it shares forbearance.
It doesn't say that it shares forbearance. You can't pop bubble
activated.
and then pump.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can't bubble through it, and you can't bubble and then use it. They're like mutually exclusive when active.
Gotcha.
Okay, so do we feel like Holy Paladin stay in A? We probably just stick to A for now. So let's hit Resto Shamans. This is a fun one. I'm kind of excited about Resto Shamans, and we're going Alliance Arcadis, so this is it's funny that I'm kind of hyped for them. They're getting twin casting as an option, right? One of the runes gives them a chance to twin cast their healing spells as well as their offensive spells, but it works for all of those things at once. So we talked about the Ellie Resto hybrid that might stay and just be way more powerful now because they could get.
When you say twin casting, is that just a copy of yourself casting the same ability
at half damage or half healing? Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yes. Yep. It's a rune. I forget the chance on it, Kev. Is it 15% chance?
What's it called? Say it again.
Is I forget the name of the rune. I'm sorry. The rune for shamans.
Twin casting.
It's is it Elemental Overload?
Or to describe it again? Sorry.
Chance to cast a secondary spell at half of the strength.
Oh, that's Elemental Overload. That's like a elemental ability.
If through Lightning Bolt, Chain Lightning, Chain Heal, Healing Wave, Lava Burst spells a 33% chance to cast a second similar spell on the same target at no additional cost, causes half damage or healing and no threat. Oh.
Wow.
Yes.
Is that a Wrath ability?
So it was a TBC ability.
Yes.
And then a Wrath. I don't know if it's a Wrath ability or not, but I think it was specific just to Lightning Bolt and Chain Lightning.
It was just Ellie. Yep.
And I don't think it ever included heals.
Correct.
So that's crazy. Yeah,
very,
I like
very
that
interesting. I think that makes them quite powerful.
Double Chain Lightning? Oh my gosh. At half the...
Yeah.
Well, I mean...
And imagine just getting lucky with your procs and getting, 3 Chain Lightnings in a row that all proc it.
Also with the... I don't know if they're going to change the old rating tier sets, but like they had those crazy Chain Heal tier set bonuses as well. So you would have like twin casting like 5 proc chain heals all over the place. It'd be hilarious. But yeah, for PvP, that's obviously very, very powerful. Both from an offensive standpoint, healing standpoint, hybrid standpoint, I think it's just phenomenal. They're getting Healing Rain, which is a common retail AoE heal that they have, which I think is also quite powerful because even though it's not a tremendous amount of healing at once, and it only affects your party, it's a free GCD essentially, where you can just prep it, right? You just put it on the ground and then go to town and do anything else you need to do. So it's essentially like a free spell, like we talked about with like Circle or Prayer Bending. But yeah, so those are two extremely powerful things, and if that wasn't good enough, they're getting Earth Shield.
Oh man.
Yeah. Yep. Pushback, protection, absorb, damage reduction, healing on top of it. Oh, and what is it? Water orbs? Yeah, or water shield.
Water shield.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, I don't know, Kevio, if Ret has told you, but I haven't done any research really for this expansion coming out. I do plan on playing it. I have seen, snippets about mage healers and runes, and I've heard like the gist, and I watched the opening announcement at BlizzCon stream. But other than that, I've been going pretty blind. So I'm really surprised to hear how many different abilities they added into this season from both TBC and Wrath.
Just at level 25 too. I mean, God knows what else.
I know. I had no idea it was going to be this extensive.
Yeah, we're not talking about even any of the PvE ones, too.
Or the DPS stuff.
I'm so interested. Because I plan on going in pretty blind, but I do like the PvP aspect, of course.
Yeah.
Cool. Very cool. So, yeah,
I think they just continue with their S rank, man. Like, they're only gaining advantages here.
Yeah,
I agree.
it looks like at least at level 25.
Yeah.
So in Arcadis, like they're right now the runes are broken into like glove, legs, chest. So like
Mhm.
you can't have two of the gloves, right? So like there's certain abilities you can't match with. But for right now, level 25, uh, gloves it's either, or for legs it's either basically an ability that makes it so shamans can tank because it gives them threat. But the other leg one is shamanistic rage, which is just like flat out damage
Yep.
reduction, and then they get mana
Mana,
back.
mana
So
back.
that's
Yeah.
like that's incredible for PvP.
Will we see heal hands at all in PvP?
That's a good question. I feel
I
like that's
wonder.
definitely a possibility. That's definitely a
Eh,
possibility.
I'd have to see the talent tree breakdown, but you know, do you if Maelstrom weapons is really what makes heal hands, and if you're not getting that talent as enhanced, then I don't know if.
Yeah, and there's still a lot of time for them to add that rune. Like,
Mhm.
there's still 3 phases after this one that is
But you're
that's gonna
saying you
have
could
runes in
take
it.
Shamanistic Rage rune as a healer, as a
Yes.
Resto Shaman.
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
not
Yeah,
like
these are all like
specific.
independent of like a talent tree.
Mm-hmm.
So this sort of bleeds into DPS, but I'll just add like they can like an LE shot like the hybrid DPS resto, like they get lava burst in the way that it works in Wrath, where if they have flame shock on them,
Big
it's
crits.
100% crit. Um,
Mm.
8-second cooldown though, and 10% of base mana, 2-second cast.
Dude, they have the rune that allows them to dual wield too, and I'm just cracking up at the premise of them having like dual wield hammer of the twisting nethers, like healing people with
Dude.
this 2 big maces.
Well, because if you really think about it at the essence of Shaman, like most of your damage aside from lightning bolts and chain lightnings and lava bursts, which is obviously huge, burst pump, is shocks. And so you could easily, like you said, be a melee resto shaman running in
Yeah.
shamanistic rage to reduce damage taken and just shock and help
Yeah.
your front line just push.
Unless they change the gearing, though, it is a little different at 60 because there isn't spell power for everything. It's spell damage, and then there's healing, right?
Okay.
So you do have healing gear that's completely unique, like of its own.
Your spell damage won't carry over into
Won't be
healing.
nearly as high. Yeah,
Yeah.
you'll have some. I think I can't remember what the ratio is, but it's pretty low. It's quite low. So it's definitely a possibility, but I don't know if it'll be as powerful as like if you were to just have pure spell power on your gear.
Oh, so I misspoken. So like the leg runes, you would have to pick between Earthshield or Shamanistic Rage.
Yeah. Which is good. I think that having 2 extremely powerful runes competing with each other is great.
I do too.
Because you might, maybe an Ellie Shaman might.
And
take Earth
is it
Shield.
possible to have 2 pairs of legs, one with each rune? You can swap it off depending on
Ooh,
comp that you're
yeah,
facing.
some TC happening right here, probably.
You have to like look at I have to look at how the tooltip is set up, but it's not clear like when you're itemizing your character how it's like you would switch between it if it's like truly attached to a piece of gear or what. So not sure.
Mm-hmm. Like, let's say you have a bunch of warriors on your team, you might want to have that Earth Shield rune, but let's say the enemy team has a bunch of rogues and you're just trying to survive at different bases. You might want the Shamanistic Rage just to help.
Yeah, like or if they're flag carrying, little stuff like that. Yeah, if they're getting tunneled, yeah, switch between Earthshield and that. That's true.
So what I'll leave us off on is our current tier list is kind of where we think they are gonna be if nothing crazy happens with the future runes. However, that being said, I think that there's a lot of runes left. Obviously, we have so many slots we haven't even explored. They're probably going to introduce more runes in the current slots. We've got 4 phases of runes to go through. So I mean, there's some crazy stuff that could still happen. The first thing that hits me in the head is if priests get Mass Dispel, they immediately ascend to like a much higher tier and devalue like H pals and stuff because that's just an amazing ability.
Yeah. Also, do you want to put Arcane Mage in this since they conduct that's technically a healing
so that
spec?
is our new boy. So as of right now, they have some really cool ways to do decent healing to a target at a time. They can do some multi-target healing, but it's not really that powerful yet. And it is based on the damage they're putting out. which I think is also strange because how are they going to gauge that versus like putting all healing power on their gear? Because then their damage would be really low. But would that increase the healing of it that much more? So it's got a lot of unknowns. So obviously, it's really hard for us to TC around. We'll just go over a couple of things that they've got. They have, I think it's called Rewind, or is it Stop Time? It's a 30-second cooldown, and it's an activation, and then it'll take all of the damage that someone took during the activation, and then when you reactivate it or when it expires, it reverses all that damage. I mean, if you're good at the game and you can, predict other players, that can be phenomenal.
I think it's the other way around. If your current target with your temporal beacon instantly heals all damage taken over the last 5 seconds.
Okay, excellent. That's even easier to use then.
So if they're at like
100%
HP or 100 HP, and they have temporal beacon on it, so you have to have that on it, and they're about to die,
right.
And it's an instant cast, so it just immediately saves them.
Yeah, so that's actually even easier to use.
This tooltip says 60-yard range. Is that right?
Well, beacon was 60, and then they just recently nerfed it to 40, so I could see that being the case for now. But yeah, so that's a pretty interesting ability. Obviously, that's not like an exact heal, unless it's affected by Mortal Strike. It might just be like an effect. The other healing that they've got is the what's the buff that they put on friendlies to get the temporal what?
Temporal beacon, which is So I'm trying to make sure I understand this. So you would heal a target. So you use regeneration, heals the target for this formula, health over 30 seconds, and applies their temporal beacon for 30 seconds. After casting a spell, you will suffer from tangled casualty for 5 minutes, reducing your fire and frost spell damage by 50% and preventing the use of ice block. So they want you to use arcane spells when you're using this. Right. And then temporal beacon's tooltip is records the subject's space-time position. 40% of all arcane damage done by this caster will be converted to healing, divided among the caster's current temporal beacon targets. So you would spread out your temporal beacon's pump, and then it's going to heal those people.
Yep, or you can just put it on one and get a ton of healing.
It's almost like how Disc Priest became later on.
Exactly. That's what everyone relates it to, is the iteration of Disc Priest that we see now. So, do I think it's going to be good? Yes, because you also have to deal damage, and any healer that can be offensive is that much scarier. But they might be more tunnelable. You might want to go for them, depending on what their future runes are going to be. Because they might have some.
You can ice block when you apply their healing, their regeneration.
Right. But they might have an invis eventually. They might have a rewind time blink where they were before they blink back to or something. So they might just be extremely tricky to go all in on. But if they don't get a lot of those types of tools to increase their own survivability, then I would say I'm
trying to picture this in a big clash. Okay, so you're fighting, they pop this regeneration on a few targets, and that puts the beacon on them, and then they have to get damage out to do the healing. So are they arcane explosioning? Are they arcane missiling? Are they arcane blasting? They have to get that damage off, which
I'm gonna say this right now. In AV and in a world boss raid versus raid encounter, I would put
saying the same thing.
I would put them at S. I would, because just putting a few temporal beacons out and spamming arcane explosion would top everyone's health, and all you need is a bop from a paladin and activate a lip after the bop gets dispelled or something. Dude, it's insane.
So they do the same thing they do now, where you get support and
but they're healing everybody.
But they're healing everyone.
Right.
Now, does it say all damage done by the mage, or is it specific to their spells? Because I'm wondering if sappers also.
40% of arcane damage done by the caster will be converted to healing.
Okay.
So they can still
is it instant?
Really well.
Is it instant? Is it like a Holy Nova heal, where every damage you do, all the damage you do is immediately healing the people, or is it?
So you got to apply the spell they get, which is regeneration. And then that is a healing spell that heals over 3 seconds, and then that applies the beacon effect.
Okay, so it's a heal over time.
Beacon effect, you can start pumping damage to heal people with the beacon effect. So you have to spread out.
So you have to be really strategic about it too, which is fine. I mean, it's going to be a skill gap, but it still sounds like it'll be insanely good for large scale PvP. And I mean, potentially small scale. It's just kind of weird with so many unknowns. Mage in general is S tier, so I feel like but giving them the capacity to heal their friendlies with damage just game breaking.
The only thing I don't know if this tooltip's accurate. It says the single target regeneration spell, 43% of base mana. I don't know if that's accurate or what, but
base isn't your total, so I mean it's expensive. That's very expensive, but I don't know. It might not be the end of the world. They also have that rune that when their mana is below a certain amount, it like regenerates.
Yeah, I'm reading Enlightenment, which is that's shared with the regeneration spell.
Okay, so they can't run it.
Yeah, you deal 10% more damage while you have more than 70% mana, while below 30% mana, 10% of your mana regeneration continues while casting. So you wouldn't take that one.
So
you expect.
What you're saying is we have one more reason to innervate mages.
That's what I'm saying.
That's pretty funny. Okay, but I think there's a good chance that they're towards the top.
And power infuse.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Power infuse the mage. Innervate the mage.
Just knowing what mages are capable of. It's
remember what I said about that 40 man raid group too of all mages.
Yeah, like I swear I bet you just toss in like even 3 arcane mages and just terrorize everybody. AV champions for sure. Arcane Mage and AV, best healer. I'm calling it now. The best. No one's gonna come close. And then as the battle groups get smaller, and then the first thing they're releasing, which is kind of funny, is like an Ashen Vale open world battleground type situation. So I'm curious to see how that works out. But they might be powerhouses.
I'm gonna go look at like what level mages get each ability, just so I can understand what they'll be capable of.
Sure. Well, I mean, these are all our opinions and theory crafts around level 60 stuff, so they'll have all their abilities at 60.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, 25. I don't know. I mean, the twink bracket is so strange to me, and I think that phase is going to be so short, which is predominantly why I didn't have us, theory crafting level 25 stuff. Okay, do y'all want to start hitting some DPS?
Yes, I would love to.
All right. Let's see, I gotta reset. Okay.
Yeah, and I have Wowhead pulled up on my screen so I can...
Okay, so we'll go with some of the hybrids first. Let's go with Boomkin. So originally I would put Boomkin at like a C or a D. From old school. They hit really hard, for sure. But the utility they have is not even that impressive back in the day. Now, obviously, there's a lot of things changing with them. We talked about that Wrath giving them procs on Healing Touch. That's kind of interesting. They're getting Star Surge. They're getting, what's it called? Sunfire or Sunbeam. If they get, like, oh man, what's it called? Like Rain of Stars. It's not called Rain of Stars. I just call it that every time. They're like huge AoE burst ability that just like crushes people in retail
Starfall.
And in Wrath. Yeah, Starfall. If they end up getting that as a rune, they come online. Yeah, big time.
Oh my god, can you imagine? Oh my god,
I've had to deal with it a lot, so I can totally imagine
that alone turns them into like a must-have in group PvP.
Yeah,
wow,
it would immediately escalate them to like an A+. But yeah, I'm just really curious. They need so much. They need so much. Like, I'm gonna leave them in C for now, because for me to even consider them in a higher tier for PvP, they would need to gain Cyclone. They would need to gain Starfall. They would need to gain more hasted casting on Starfire to the point where they needed like 45% crit chance or something nuts. They would need better mana efficiency, because like them changing in and out of forms to be able to kite is hard for them. Their spells are expensive. I don't know. Like the runes themselves look cool, but that's not nearly enough to get them to the point where
none of them elevate them above another caster DPS in group PvP.
I'm actually, I hate doing this. I might leave them in D for now, just for now. I mean,
the only thing I could think compelling is like a hybrid, like niche role.
Yeah, that could be interesting. But right now, Resto Shaman's beating their ass on that too. So.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so that was the first hybrid. Enhancement Shaman. I would consider them to be D. I think I would give them a D in old school, and I think they're going to get a lot better actually this version. But before we get into the new stuff, do y'all have any like thoughts on where Enhancement Shaman was before the changes?
I mean, they like in every iteration they just don't have gap closers. So I mean,
Survivability was low. Like they go head to head with a group of warriors, they always die because warriors are much tankier. If they don't get their Wind Fury procs, they're sitting ducks. They have some decent kiting, kinda.
Yeah, I mean, you played a little bit of this. You played a little bit of this in Arena and Wrath, right, Nick? If he's still there, do we lose him?
Yeah. Sorry, I had to stop my phone for a second. Yeah, I mean, pretty good. I'd say like they're like a B tier in PvP in general and Wrath. They have to be in a niche group.
Okay.
Yeah, in Wrath. In Classic, you know, like I said earlier, with any type of shaman, most of their strength comes in with shocks.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, they can chase people down with frost shock. They can interrupt with earth shock. They can do damage with flame shock. I think it'd be interesting maybe tying in the lava burst rune with an enhancement shaman just for a little bit extra burst.
Yeah.
Engineering's a must, I feel like, to get to gap close.
Yeah.
So I just think that they're kind of squishy and they kind of like lack the full Zug that a warrior has and lack the full healing that they have in their Resto or Elemental counterpart. So I'm curious though. I want to see some of these buffs discussed and
so one
see
of the
what
things
happens.
they're getting is the equivalent of the Lava Lash. They're gonna also have Flame Tongue application, reduces the cooldown on their it's like Lava Cone or something. They do a conal attack now, which is a huge burst. So they can use that more often. Their flame shocks are ticking. Let's see, what else did they give them?
Oh. Yeah, none of this is compelling me.
Yeah, like it's interesting because it's like a baseline for what they need, but also there's so much more that it's just like Boomkins, where like there's still quite a bit.
All these runes I'm looking at, they're only going to be like
better for Ellen.
They're only good at PvE, PvE, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think the only kind of cool niche thing that I remember about Classic Enhanced Shamans, and you know, you have to be in the right environment for this, is two-handed enhance with Wind Fury. And I wonder, is Wind Fury operating the same way that it did in Classic, where you can get?
Yes.
Okay.
But
that's pretty big.
Is that they are giving them a lot of tools and they're pushing them towards dual wield. And as of 7 days ago, Blizzard actually said we don't have anything in the works for two-handed enhancement, which is a shame because that's really a defining piece of Classic. But
you know, the dual wielding melee attacks is like hitting paper. You're not going to be doing enough damage to break through a pre-shield.
Mm-hmm.
You know, DSAC is going to mitigate most of your offhand's damage, and overall, it's just, you know, it's super reliant on burst windows.
The name of the PvP game is Burst too. Like at least
you have to,
in this version.
And they don't have as much burst as many other classes, so I think somewhere around B tier. They're still team players and can help interrupt and off heal and do some damage. But
I think they need Ghost Wolf. I think they need Ascendance. I think they need like Lava Burst proc on auto attack.
They need a retail toolkit.
Yeah, they just need a lot of offensive weapons. And then they have Shaman Rage now, which is good.
Just go Ellie. Just go Ellie in PvP.
Just go Ellie, yeah. Okay, so Enhance is still kind of down here in D for now. Okay, next hybrid is Ret Paladin. Alright, so Ret Paladin was definitely D. Back in the day. Oh, these poor hybrids, man. They just sucked. They didn't suck. In solo queue, or if you had like a really coordinated group, you could do some cool stuff with them. But yeah, like if you just replace them with like a pure class, they just get outclassed, outperformed. The one thing Ret Paladin had is tankiness, so that was its like main strength. Very, very hard to kill. Fairly immobile. The only thing they had was like base movement and speed increase. There was a spec where you get like Wind Fury type situations, which may be interesting and something to look at moving forward. Right now, everyone's hype on them, I understand, because they're getting Crusader Strike and Divine Storm and a new seal that does consistent good damage. There might be a chance for seal twisting, which is extremely valuable with the addition of Wind Fury to the alliance as well.
I'm looking at these. These just sound like they will go immediately.
They gain a percentage of mana back based on their damage, I think, with the new seal. Pretty sure, right?
Martyrdom. So unleashing this, I don't see anything about mana in this tooltip.
Okay, there was something that gives them mana back. But yeah, if it's not strong enough, they're going to have mana issues for sure. They always did. Even though we're casting like nothing. But as far as the tools that they're gaining everything they need to be able to do as much damage in a burst window as a warrior. So I think that's good.
Yeah, there might be like TBC paladins where like they catch you in a Hajj, you just get like absolutely smoked.
I think that's kind of how they're going to function. Yeah.
And then just look at the runes. Crusader Strike, Divine Storm. So like, I don't know. I could see that compelling in a big team fight, especially if Divine Storm is like AoE damage and it's healing people around them. Martyrdom, I don't quite understand this seal. Oh, your party members within 40 yards each gain mana equal to 10% of the damage you take. So, but the thing is, you would get that or Divine Storm. You can't have both. They're both chest runes.
Yeah.
A third chest rune is Horn of Lordaeron, which gives everyone
extra stats.
Extra strength and agility.
Yeah.
How does Inspiring Presence work?
Is it the aura that breaks fear and charm?
Yeah. What is that? Like, your Inspiring Presence periodically dispels fear. So what is the baseline ability of Inspiring Presence?
There is none. It's a new ability completely. It just gives you like an aura about you.
Okay, so they get a tremor essentially.
Yes.
It's like,
yeah, exactly. But it sounds like it's passive. Is it not? Is it an activation?
It says periodically dispel. It says your Inspiring Presence. It's an instant.
Oh, okay. It is an activation.
I don't really understand this tooltip. Yeah, your Inspiring Presence periodically dispels fear and sleep effects on neighbor party members.
Yeah. Tremor.
I just don't understand how this is activated. Is this just like...
It's a button, most likely. It's just a spell.
It's an on-use spell, Fear Break?
On-use
tremor. Is it an aura?
Yeah, it's an aura based from the Paladin. Yeah.
So yeah, it's just a one-time use that you have full up
like,
on, I guess.
I guess it would be like Aura Mastery, but instead of like you using it to like not get kicked or to double your resistance to something, it's just a Tremor Totem activation.
Got it.
Yeah. But I mean, that seems very valuable for sure, because I think there's going to be a lot of Warlock players out there. But
I mean, yeah, when you're Horde against Ally, Fears is such a better ability because of all the... So having that would be nice.
It sounds like, although there's a lot of copium on Ret Paladin being S tier, I think in a PvP situation, they stick to like a low grade until they get a few more tools. They don't have like wings yet. They're not They don't have the CC break and immunities that they have later on in the game, like stun immunities. Yeah, it's not enough.
If I'm playing Arathi base and I'm making a roster, I would let one on an Arathi Basin team just for those big clashes with the warriors.
Sure.
But no more than one. I want more warriors for those big bowling balls, and then in like a Gulch situation, they don't have nearly enough control other than countering a warlock that like I can see them being compelling in like the Gulch meta. So yeah.
So the next hybrid we've got is a Shadow Priest. I'm gonna put them in A, ironically. Like old school A.
Yeah, I was thinking about this one the most even before we had this conversation, just because they're such exceptional world PvP like small encounter and duelers, but they're like not like with these new runes. There may be room for them to be really strong in group PvP, and yeah, like I feel good at A or B.
They're getting a lot more damage output, which is great because although they actually had good damage and their spell coefficients were quite strong for scaling properties, they just lacked a lot of burst. So they're getting significantly more burst now. which I think is important, and they're getting better AoE toolkits. So those big clashes, they have way more viability in. Mindseer. There's a rune that makes Shadow Word Pain hit 3 people at the same time. And then there's like a Mind Blast buff where it does like 20% more damage or something, or cast faster. I don't know if it can cast faster. It
They get another dot, Void Plague.
Void
so
Plague. It's a disease, which is dispellable, so that's an issue.
And then where's the Mind Blast? Then Chest Rune that just 20% more damage for Mindfully Mind Blast for targets that are afflicted by Shadow Word Pain.
Yeah.
So this is funny because like the stuff isn't like, from what I've read, isn't like that big a deal in PvE because
right.
mana issues. But like if I'm in a group PvP setting and they get Shadow Word Pain on 3 warriors, and they get a Mind Blast Shadow Word Death combo, or then Mindseer, then they're applying the Shadow Weaving more and more, and I could just see like that being super.
They could get really impressive.
Strong.
I think there's 2 things that they're probably going to get in my mind that also make them extremely good in PvP. Obviously, they're not runes yet, but I can't imagine they're not going to give it to them. Shadow Word Death and Dispersion. I think if
they already get Shadow Word Death.
Oh, they do. Shadow Word Death.
Yeah, that's a glove rune.
Okay.
But you would have to pick between that and Mindseer. Mindseer is also a glove rune.
Yeah. Well, I would take it over Mindseer in PvP, I think.
I think in a gold mine, 1v1, 2v2 scenario, they can hold their own. But it kind of feels bad bringing in a Shadow Priest to your AB team. At least it used to. So
yeah, I agree, 100%.
Hopefully they're more than a meme class. I'm sure they will be, but at least in an original classic, bringing one to PvP or PvE was usually not something you did.
Right.
Definitely.
I'm going to give them A and keep them A, and here's why. In a very specific pre-made situation, they're not great, like Arathi Basin specifically. In Alteric Valley, they're phenomenal. Multi-dotting, doing tons of damage. Just sip, drink, and get back into it. Or hit those small PvP situations and dominate some people because you're so tanky and you have great damage profile. In Warsong Gulch, they're quite useful because they can also like lock down healers, get some mana burns in, do some damage on the side, get an AoE fear that's really useful. If they have Shadow Word Death now, they have a chance of getting like a Tremor Totem out of the way before they fear. So they have a really good toolkit to do those things. And if they get that additional burst damage and they get the Dispersion eventually rune, I think they have enough tankiness, scariness to really upset healers or other classes in like small scale PvP to the point where they are more valuable in that Arathi Basin situation as well. But yeah, like the 15 on 15 Arathi Basin mode, they were probably C tier, I would say, originally. But still a league of their own compared to the other hybrid classes.
Yeah, I'm going to give them an A or B, and I think if I'm making a perfect Gulch roster, I'm still like very like, why wouldn't I bring another mage or another like this priest? But I will give them this. I'll give them an AB because I'm just looking at this kit and like because warriors are just so dominant, I can see a world in which they are like utterly melting warriors. And then I don't know how this will play out mechanically, but this Shadow Word Pain that applies up to 2 targets. So if they're getting that out, that's spreading Shadow Weaving. So that's like that's debuff cover, right?
Right.
And then it's also, is that going to proc blackout? Can they smoke? Can they multi blackouts?
Yeah, that would be interesting.
Folks. And then I
think it's one of those classes that has a high skill cap, and if you can play a priest in general really well, then you're going to rip people with Shadow Priests. And like you said, you can 1v1 a warrior, no problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, when we did Arathi Basin meta, we would send, like, a priest and a mage to Lumbermill to just stall. Like, I could see a mage and a priest, like, just, like, taking 4-on-2 or 3-on-2 with, like, that kit. They can kill shit and CC so much.
Yep.
In, like,
and, like,
3.
And similar to what we talked about with Druid and Shaman, all they have to do is cast 1 heal, and it takes them out of Shadow Form, and they're healing, so...
And they're good. They'd be really good flag carrier killers too, because all the
They are. Yeah.
Gulch,
Offensive
dots.
dispel.
Yep, offensive dispel, the dots, and then
True.
and then they get a Mind Blast Shadow Word Death combo off that like crits, along with the dots ticking, along with Shadow Weaving. It's just that's the stuff that wins games is melting. Like, that's why you have a Warlock, right? They
Yeah, they
have
do the
the
same
dots
thing.
Rotting.
and nuke,
Right.
so it's a similar kit to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna leave them in B for now. I was thinking A, but honestly, I feel y'all's argument for B as well. So I think we'll just like B plus maybe for now. Let's get into feral druids. I'm gonna put them in B. If I have to use the bathroom, I'll give you guys your thoughts and then I'll come catch up.
Which class?
Feral druids.
Pharaoh Druid. So Arcadis, I don't know if you're caught up on them. But
I know there's a bunch of hype around Feral for PvE.
Yeah.
And I mean, when I think of a Feral Druid in PvP, it's, an assassin type. So they have their place, I guess, same with Shadow Priest. So I can see them B tier just by that alone. But I'm curious to hear on some of these changes, including, I know Wind Fury is a big one.
Wind Fury. I don't know how much application that's going to get in like a pre-made situation, and then they get other stuff that just makes them more tankier. That's what Kev was saying, or Druid expert. But basically, they become even better flag carriers.
Oh, sure.
So they get one thing that's like a baseline survival of the fittest, chest rune. Reduces the chance to be critically hit by melee attacks by 6%, reduces all damage taken by 10%. Damage taken reduced by an additional 20% while in bear form. So 20% damage reduction. So that alone. And then, what is this? Skull Bash? Charge to a target within 13 yards, bash target skull, interrupting. So they get... Oh, it's the same as... It shares a cooldown with Feral Charge.
I was going to say, because a double charge would be insane.
They get one more thing that's supposed to make them really strong flag carriers.
It goes back to the conversation about versatility, right, in these hybrid classes. So, like, you could even consider a Resto Druid taking those runes, or a Boomkin Druid taking those runes, especially in Warsong if you're going to be a flag carrier. I'm starting to think of these classes as just like a Druid, rather than their exact role because of how hybrid they are.
Yep.
So, I think B or A, even. And that's specific to Warsong, right? So if you think about World PvP and Arathi Basin, it might change that perspective. But
yeah, they get B with an asterisk because you need a FC for Gulch, which is like the sweat's favorite thing to pre-made if like it's gonna be sweaty, because for all the tryhards did in Classic, like Vampire Clan and like the purists, whereas we were Arathi Basin, where you just want one druid for anchoring certain nodes. But yeah,
they got that shit into the stick for Arathi.
I was saying, I feel like Kev Tank Burb was saying there's like they become even better flag carriers. I guess they can probably take
they're getting damage reduction now if they want to go more tanky. Less chance to crit them. Savage Roar is very interesting. What else are they getting for flag carrying though?
One of the comments we made, Ret.
I guess you can take some of these healing runes, like Wild Growth, like those would be my only thing.
Yeah. One of the comments we made is it goes back to the conversation about these versatile classes and hybrid classes. And you could be, I told Kevin, I'm starting to think of these classes as just their standalone class, not necessarily what spec they are. Because you could be a Resto Druid or a Boomkin with these feral talent runes. And we said, ultimately they'd probably end up B+, and the asterisk around that would be specific to Warsong Gulch. You got to have a flag carrier. And
the best flag carrier used to be what, like a hybrid, like balance.
There's a specific spec, I forget, but yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, like I think that's still going to be the case. They're still going to be like one of the best flag carriers. So Warsong Gulch, they're like S tier. In general, though, I think with all the runes they're getting for damage output, which is a lot as of right now, and with them applying Wind Fury for the Alliance side, they're going to be mandatory for even Arathi Basin groups. and useful for small parties in AV. They're going to pump in AV in like the little designated corners that they fight in, just like a rogue does. Like the rogues are fucking phenomenal, so Feral's probably going to get bumped up with all the increases in damage they're getting because they already had good damage profile. It just wasn't quite as powerful as a rogue or warrior. Now it's going to be comparable, I think. So they adjusted the way weapons work for them. Weapons are important, so those big two-hander maces that they've been using for PvP now actually do something. They scale with stats well, and there's a bunch of stat scaling buffs coming to like hunters, paladins, shamans. So I don't know. It just seems very scary from all avenues, but absolutely S in Warsong. I would give them probably an S overall right now, just because I feel like they're so. You want at least one, so that would normally make them A, but they're also going to just do plenty of damage. They're going to be kind of tanky. They're going to be good objective holders. They're going to be good flag carriers, and they're going to be vital for like objective points in Alteric Valley. Tanky.
To me, S tier is anything you would stack. So I would put
okay.
I would put Feral at like
A like A plus maybe.
I mean I lean more towards B. Like
really?
I think a Wind Fury is nice, but I'm not like. They're not no one's ever going to be the wrecking ball in a group fight the way warriors are for physical and.
So, I would say A just because you want at least one minimum. Like
yeah.
You have to have one. You have to have one for Warsong, absolutely. You have to have one for Arathi now, absolutely.
For ally, you definitely need one because you need the Wind Fury. Yeah, so the Horde's different, but yeah.
And I do think they're going to be really good. So I mean, I think this is my theory craft for the Feral moment. I think that they're going to get a lot of very interesting runes that allows them to be like bear DPS a little bit. We saw like bear weaving happen in Wrath, and I think that's going to be kind of a thing. So if they can be tanky and do good damage, then I think that just puts them neck and neck with some warriors, and then they also give them Wind Fury, so they're just going to be really, really sought after. Yeah, I think they're great. But yeah, we'll put them in A for now, with a potential caveat for S if they can scale up even better. And then let's see, we got like one or two more hybrids, and then unfortunately me and Arcadis have to go to a raid, so we'll probably have to do this in 2 segments. But let's hit Resto Shaman. So we knew they were S back in the day. They just was straight scary. It sounds like they're gaining everything they needed. The only thing they don't have is casting while moving.
They just get stronger with Lava Burst and Overload.
Shamanistic Rage is going to be usable by Ellie too.
Shamanistic Rage will not be shared with anything else that an Ellie would want. So yes. At least for level 25 cap. We don't know what it looks like later, but...
Right.
You mentioned Earth Shield shares the same rune, right?
It's Sham Rage, yeah.
Yeah. They're both legs.
Yeah. What about Water Shield?
Water Shield is gloves.
Yeah. So, I mean, no matter what, they're looking great.
Which is shared with Lava Burst, so you can't have water.
Sure.
You can't
I'm just saying, like, because if they don't want to take Lava Burst for whatever reason, they'll have that as an opportunity for them to keep their mana high or something. But
yeah, and the only rune I've heard defensively that kind of would counter Nelly at all is Feral with the reduced damage taken. Anything that reduces damage taken.
Right.
There's not there's not a hard counter to just the Ellie full casting on you besides silences and fears and whatnot, which temporary.
Yeah, they're definitely S tier.
Yeah, I think they just stay where they're at the top of the food chain. And ironically, they feel better than a lot of pure classes. I'll say this. They feel better in large-scale to pre-made situations. In dueling, I feel like Elemental Shamans get pumped by a lot of classes.
Yeah, they have to go a certain spec that is a more dueling spec.
The 1v1 world is not the best for them. They're still good, but they're nothing along the lines of how strong a rogue, a mage, a warlock, or a shadow priest is. Maybe even a hunters in some situations too. But yeah, but everything else Ellie's just far and away the best. All right, do I have any more hybrids for us? Let's see. This is all rogues, warlocks, warriors. Yeah, that might be it, guys. Wow. So we covered all of the hybrids and all of the healers today. let's figure out another day to come do just all the pure DPS boys. That'll be a fun one. A lot of hot takes. I'm excited to talk about that with y'all. Hopefully y'all can set some time aside for me.
Yeah, I know you saved best. I'm really excited. That's what I was most excited to talk about.
Yeah, saving the best for last, and we didn't have enough time. But yeah, this was fun, guys. I appreciate y'all coming to chat with me. I'll try and post this. We might have to do the other half right after release, ironically, but that's okay because it's not. We might be more informed, and we'll get to see some of the 25 stuff by then, and have a better idea of where 60s, leaning towards. But yeah, guys, I'm gonna close the stream. Thanks for being on.
Sure. Thank you.